All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to talk about workflow automation, specifically how tools like Zapier can literally give you hours of your week back so you can stop doing the boring stuff and actually focus on what matters.
Just think about your work week for a second. How much of it is just moving stuff around? Copying something from an email into a spreadsheet, downloading a file just to upload it somewhere else. You know the drill. It really adds up.
And it's so frustrating, right? It makes you wonder, in a world with all this technology, shouldn't our apps be able to just talk to each other? Well, good news. They can.
So, let's put a name to this problem we're all facing. We'll call it the daily digital grind.
This is what it looks like in reality, isn't it? Jumping between a dozen different tabs, that endless copy-paste cycle. It's the modern equivalent of doing paperwork by hand. It's not just slow and tedious, it's also where mistakes happen. We've all been there, that one tiny copy-paste error that causes a huge headache later.
And here's the scale of the world we're working in. Just look at that number, over 7,000. That's how many different apps Zapier alone can connect. We're talking about a massive universe of tools that, on their own, don't speak the same language.
So how do we get them all talking to each other? Well, let me introduce you to your new best friend, your automation assistant. And we're going to break down the super simple but powerful logic that makes this whole thing work.
So at its heart, Zapier is what we call a no-code tool. Think of it like a universal translator for all your apps. Or, my favorite analogy, it's like digital duct tape. It lets you stick all these different programs together so they work as one team. And the best part, you don't have to know a single line of code.
Okay, first key idea you got to know, the trigger. This is simply the event that kicks everything off. It's the starting gun. For example, a trigger could be when I get a new email in Gmail. It's the when this happens part of the whole equation.
And if the trigger is the when, then the action is the what. This is the task you actually want to happen automatically. So if our trigger was that new email, the action might be save its attachment to my Google Drive. It's the do that part of the logic.
Now, when you put a trigger and an action, or even a few actions, together, you get a zap. That's it. The zap is the complete automated workflow you just built. It's the whole recipe, working together to get one specific job done for you.
And really, this is the whole thing right here. If you can just remember this simple phrase, when this happens, do that, then you totally understand the logic behind every single automation. It's that straightforward, but the possibilities of what you can build with it are, well, they're pretty much endless.
Okay, so that's the theory, but how does this actually look in practice? Let's walk through just how simple it is to build your very first zap. Building a zap is basically a 5-step process. First, you pick your trigger. Second, you choose your action. Third, and this is the important part, you map your data. That's just a fancy way of saying you tell Zapier which piece of information from the trigger should go into the action. After that, you test it out to make sure it works, and finally, you publish it and it's live.
And you know what? If even that sounds a little intimidating, it gets even easier. Nowadays, you can literally just describe what you want to do in plain English to an AI assistant. It'll figure out the best apps and steps, build a draft for you, and all you have to do is say, yep, looks good.
So as you can see, this is something anyone can do. You don't need to be a tech genius. So now, let's look at a few real-world examples just to get the gears turning about what you could do.
Okay, here's a classic. We've all been there, right? Frantically searching your inbox for that one important attachment from weeks ago. With the Zap, every time a new attachment arrives in Gmail, it's automatically saved to a specific folder in your Google Drive. No more searching, no more manual downloading and uploading. It just happens.
Now this one is a lifesaver for teams. Instead of one person having to constantly check for new form submissions and then tell everybody, this Zap does it instantly. A new response comes into a Google form and boom, a notification immediately pops up in a Slack channel. Everyone's in the loop in real time.
For all you marketers and content folks out there, this is a huge time saver. You hit publish on a new blog post in WordPress, and this Zap automatically creates and shares a post about it on LinkedIn. It's a simple way to make sure your content distribution is always on and always consistent.
And one more. If you manage events, this is an absolute game changer. Instead of manually exporting those attendee lists from Eventbrite and importing them into your email tool, this Zap does it automatically. Someone registers for your event and they are instantly added to your MailChimp list. It's seamless.
So you can see how powerful this can be. But to really make the most of it, let's cover a few quick pro tips that'll set you up for success right from the start.
First, and this is the most important one, start simple. Don't try to build some crazy 10-step workflow on day one. Just start small. Also, make sure you check in on your Zaps every so often to make sure they're still working the way you want. And please, please always test your Zap before you turn it on and let it run wild.
Of course, sometimes things go wrong. If your Zap isn't triggering, the first thing to check is, well, is there any new data in your Trigger app for it to find? If an action step is failing, just double-check that you've mapped your data fields correctly. And if you get an error message, just read it. It usually tells you exactly what's wrong, and it's often something simple like app permissions.
And that really brings us to the end. We've seen the pain of the daily digital grind, we've understood that super simple when-then logic, and we've seen how easy it is to start building these yourself. So the only question left for you is this. When you think about your